Tonight I want to take you to a place you've never truly left. A place that smells of old wood smoke and warm barley. Where footsteps echo off stone and linen sleeves brush the corners of your vision. It's not a battlefield, not a palace, but somewhere in between. The hush behind the curtain. The space just outside the ring of firelight. This is where you lived, always moving, always listening. You were the food bearer in Alexander's war tent. And now, in the soft hush of night, your hands remember everything. Where are you watching from? Is it cold where you are? Or is it the kind of quiet that only comes after the rain? What time is it there? Midnight? Later? Earlier? It doesn't matter now. Not here. Dim the lights. Put your phone down. Let your breath slow down just a little. Let your jaw unclench. Let the air settle into your chest like warm soup on a winter night. You are safe now. The battles are far behind you. The campfires are ash. And yet, the scent of roasted lamb and dust still lingers in your nose. Close your eyes if you like, but even if you don't, you'll feel it. The shape of the tent canvas above you. The worn leather of your sandals. It's the way your fingers curl. Not around a weapon, but around a wooden tray, steady and low. You never needed to speak. You only needed to serve. And now, long after his name became legend, long after the armies turned to dust, your story waits to be remembered. In silence, in sleep, in the stillness between breaths. So let's begin softly at the very start. You were not born great. You were not born to conquer. We're born in the shadow of steam and kitchen smoke, in a city called Pella, where bread rose in clay ovens, and kings ate with their fingers. You were small. You were quiet. And even then, your hands knew how to carry without spilling. The first plate you lifted was heavier than you expected, but your grip was strong. The kitchen master noticed. Tonight, we will walk those halls again. You'll smell the honey in the cakes. You'll hear the hiss of boiling lentils. We'll stand outside a tent larger than any house you've ever known. And inside, waiting without knowing it, sits a man who would rule the world. But not yet. Not tonight. For now, he's only a prince, and you are only the one who brings him food. One bowl at a time. One silent step after the next. Now breathe. We're going back. Scene 1. You arrive in Pella. The morning air in Pella smells of wet stone and burnt flour. You are barely tall enough to reach the lower shelves, but the woman at the oven waves you in anyway. There's no ceremony to your arrival, no names exchanged, only steam, cracked hands, and a loaf handed to you without looking. You take it. It's warm, heavy, and for the first time you feel the weight of work settle into your arms like something permanent. The floor is always damp here. Your sandals stick slightly as you walk. Voices drift from deeper insides, some sharp, some low. You do not speak. You do not ask. You watch the rhythm of hands kneading dough, cutting dates, brushing oil over flatbread. The room is alive, but no one truly sees each other. Only what they carry, only what they spill. And you'll learn quickly not to spill. There is no fire in the hearth that first evening. Just embers, glowing faintly, the color of dried blood. You're told to sleep near the grain sacks, between the barrels of vinegar and salted fish. You curl into yourself. You do not remember how you got here. Only that someone called your name and you followed, barefoot past the courtyard and the cracked fountain with the broken lion's head. You haven't spoken since. Outside, the palace drums beat once, a low sound like thunder underwater. Somewhere above you, in rooms you'll never see, nobles drink diluted wine and tear meat with their fingers. You imagine the flick of a robe, the scent of perfume, the drip of juice down a gold ring. But all you hear is your own breath, small and steady in the dark. In the morning, they hand you a cloth, rough linen, worn thin. You are told to wrap it around your head and follow the older boy. He does not speak to you. He moves fast with long legs and dirty heels. You struggle to keep up. You pass through halls that smell of wet copper and candle smoke. You feel watched, even though no one turns their head. You reach the outer kitchens, the ones that serve the king's family directly. Here, the trays are polished, the bowls shallow and wide, and the bread is cut into even unnatural squares. You are not allowed to touch anything yet. You stand near the wall, hands folded, eyes lowered. The other servants do not greet you, but one of them, an older woman with silver streaks in her hair, presses a fig into your palm, when no one is looking, soft, almost too ripe. She nods once, barely, and that is enough. That night, as you lie on the stone floor again, your hands smell faintly of garlic and ash. You feel a bruise forming on your hip from where the wine jug pressed against you all afternoon. But you do not mind. You held it without dropping it. You made no sound. You were not sent away. In this place, that is a kind of praise. Weeks pass like that, soft and slow. You never hear your name spoken, but your steps grow quieter. Your fingers grow surer. You learn which tray goes where, which plates are passed to soldiers, and which to royals. Do you learn the difference between honey drizzled and honey soaked? You learn how to wipe without leaving streaks, how to place a dish so lightly the table barely shifts. Then one day, you are told to bring bread to the prince's chamber. Just bread, still warm, wrapped in thick cloth so the heat stays in. You walk slowly, every muscle tight with awareness. The hallway to his door is wide. Too wide, it feels like the kind of space where mistakes echo. When you reach the entrance, the guard does not look at you. He taps twice on the wooden beam. Shh, you step inside. Alexander is younger than you imagined. His hair is damp, his tunic half-laced. He sits on the floor near a large window, sunlight catching on the edge of his cheekbone. There's a map open beside him, and a dagger lying across it like a paperweight. He does not look up at you. Not yet. You place the bread gently on the low table. The cloth edges are tucked in, as you were taught. You wait, still silent. Then he speaks. One word. Quiet. But you feel it. You feel it all the way down to your ribs. Hot, he says. You nod. You don't know if you're allowed to, but he doesn't send you away. You take one step back, then another. He does not ask your name, but you feel the heat of his gaze on your hands as you retreat, like he's memorizing you without meaning to. Like you are already part of the story he's telling himself. Back in the kitchen, no one asks what happened. They don't have to. They see your face, see the way you stand a little straighter. They hand you the next tray, and the next. And slowly, the silence becomes yours to carry. Scene 2. The olive grove behind the palace. You remember the first time they let you leave the kitchen. The clay jars had been cleaned. The bread was cooling in the dark. Someone handed you a folded cloth, a jar of thick oil, and a wordless nod. That was all it took, and you were walking into sunlight again.
White.
It had been weeks since you'd seen the sky without smoke. Here, behind the palace walls, the olive grove breathed differently. The trees were older than anyone you knew. Their bark split like hands. Their branches curved low as if bowing to something that had already passed. You walk slowly between the trunks, the jar tucked against your chest. The oil inside shimmered gold, catching the warmth of the afternoon. Your sandals sank into the dirt. Dry leaves cracked like whispers beneath you. No one followed. No one watched. You were meant to go alone. A small marble basin stood at the edge of the grove, where the roots thinned. You placed the jar down, as careful as if it were a child. Your hands trembled a little, not from fear but from memory. In the grove, everything moved slowly. Even the bees flew like they were half asleep, circling soft purple flowers. You sat for a moment on a sun-warmed stone, your eyes half closed. And for the first time since you arrived, you let your shoulders fall. You thought of your mother's voice, though you couldn't hear the words anymore. Only the tone, low humming like water poured over grain. You thought of your old sleeping mat, patched and thin, always smelling of ash. But the smell had been safe, familiar, like the crust of yesterday's bread. Somewhere beyond the grove, you heard a faint echo of shouting. Not close, not urgent. Just the sound of men training with wooden swords. Even their war sounded distant here. It's muffled by leaves and old earth, and you were not one of them. You were never meant to be. The olive oil needed time to breathe. That's what the older servant said. Set it in the sun, but not for too long. Let it settle. Let it thicken. You traced the rim of the jar with one finger. Smooth, cool, still full. You did not rush. There was nothing to rush for in the grove. A small snake moved through the grass near your foot. Not dangerous, just curious. You did not flinch. You watched it slip between shadows like a ribbon unspooling. Even the creatures here knew how to move without sound. That's when you first noticed him. The boy between the trees. Not dressed like a soldier, not like a prince either. He was crouched beside a fallen branch, brushing dust from a stone. You knew that profile. You had served him food more than once. It was Alexander, not yet crowned, not yet feared. Out. Just a boy, studying ants, tracing cracks in the earth with his thumb. He didn't see you right away. Or maybe he did and chose silence. You didn't move. You knew how to disappear, even while standing. He spoke without turning, his voice low, like he was talking to the dirt. Do you think they remember what came before us? You didn't answer. You weren't sure if you were supposed to. The breeze caught his hair, made the grove seem older than before. You thought of all the feet that had walked this grove before yours, of bowls set down on the same stone, of oil poured the same way, names that were never written down, hands that never held a sword. You thought maybe this was always your place, quiet, behind the curtain. He looked up then, just briefly, eyes the color of distant metal. He didn't smile, didn't frown, just nodded, then stood and walked away through the trees, without saying goodbye. And the silence he left behind wrapped around your skin like cloth. The sun dipped lower, washing the grove in a deeper gold. You picked up the jar. The oil had settled. It was ready. You walked back slower than you came, tracing each shadow with your step. The weight of it in your arms felt sacred, like you were carrying time itself. Back at the kitchen, no one asked why you took so long. They lifted the jar without question, pressed bread into your hand. The older woman glanced at you once, like she knew. You sat near the fire, chewed slowly, and said nothing. That night, your sleep was dreamless. But in the stillness before waking, you felt bark under your fingers, asking if memories ever stay. Scene 3. His first feast before war, the courtyard fills before the sun is fully gone. You carry a tray of barley cakes, each one still warm in its center. The sky is stained with purple ash, the color just before blood dries, and every step you take feels heavier than the one before. The soldiers laugh too loudly. They're drunk on wine and not enough fear. Roasted lamb drips fat into the fire pits, hissing like whispers. You pass between them, weaving with silent feet through smoke and sweat. No one sees you, but they all eat from your hands. The prince is seated beneath a heavy silk canopy. Gold thread glints at the edge of his cloak, but his hands are bare. He does not laugh with the others. His eyes stay fixed on the flames. You wonder what he's waiting for, or who. You kneel beside the low table, placing down a plate of honeyed dates. The scent rises quickly, sweet enough to sting the air. He reaches for one without looking, his fingers brushing yours. Not an accident, but not a message either. Just a moment. Behind you, the men begin pounding on the table. The sound is rhythmic, dull, like war before it sharpens. They call for songs, for more meat, for more drink. You rise before you're noticed, retreating into the folds of smoke. In the corner, a harp begins to hum. The player is young, her wrists trembling slightly on the strings. Her voice, when it comes, is high and unsteady.
Oh.
You carry a skin of wine to the general's table. They barely acknowledge you, talking over each other in rough Macedonian. One of them slams a fist down too hard and spills a dish. You clean it quickly, before the anger turns toward you. Alexander eats slowly, thoughtfully. His cup stays mostly full, though others are already staggering. The feast is meant to celebrate tomorrow's departure, a march eastward. But in his eyes, the celebration is already over. You watch him from a distance, just behind the food line. Servant whispers beside you, barely loud enough to hear. He hasn't slept since the scouts came back. You nod, though you already knew. You could see it in his breath. Someone drops a platter near the fire. It shatters. Bread and ash mix in the dirt like lost offerings. The laughter pauses, then erupts, louder, false and sharp. The boy who dropped it is gone before you blink. You carry boiled lentils to the younger soldiers on the edge of the gathering. They thank you quietly, nodding with tired smiles. These are not the loud ones. These are the ones who listen. You like them more. They eat like they remember being hungry. As the feast drags on, the fire dims to coals. Meat hardens on the bone. Wine sours in metal cups. You collect what's left, stacking trays with quiet grace. No one notices what vanishes once it's cold. Then a voice rises, not singing, but reciting. An older man, eyes cloudy with drink, quoting Homer. His words fall slow and heavy, like stones in water. Even the drunkest soldiers listen when poetry walks the table. Alexander stands. He does not shout, but the silence that follows stretches like cloth in a storm. He lifts his cup, says nothing, drinks, then leaves. No one follows. Not right away. You are the first to move again. You lift the bowl he left behind, still half full. You don't taste it, but you do smell it. Cinnamon, resin, dust. The wine of war. Strong, but not sweet. Back in the storeroom, you sit on a crate of salted fish. Your hands are sticky with juice and ash. Your feet throb, but you don't sleep. Not yet. You listen to the fading sounds of war pretending to be celebration. Outside, a breeze kicks up the scent of trampled herbs. Thyme, mint, something bitter you can't name. The stars are out. No clouds. It's a kind of night that holds its breath for what comes next. And you know, it's deep in your stomach, beneath the bread and fear, you know tomorrow the carts will roll, swords will be sharpened, the sky will turn to brass, and you will follow, not as a fighter, but as a hand that feeds them all. You lie down in the dark, beneath the shelf where onions hang. You tuck your knees in, wrap your arm around your stomach. Your dreams come slow, thick with smoke and the taste of salt. And somewhere far off you hear a boy reciting poetry to the stars. You wake before the sun, before the birds, before the campfire smoke rises. The ground beneath you is still warm from the night, but the air is colder now. Your hands move before your thoughts do, reaching for the cloth, the bread, the knife. This is not a day for forgetting. It's the day they leave for war. The kitchen is already awake, filled with quiet urgency. No shouting today. No time. Just the rhythm of preparation. Sacks of barley are opened and scooped into pots. Water boils. Hands work. No one meets your eyes. The scent of grain thickens the air, heavy and familiar. Barley softens slowly, bloating in the pot like something trying to remember itself. You stir without speaking, watching the surface break and settle. There is comfort in this. A routine older than kings. Meat is scarce, but the soldiers will not notice. A few thin strips of salted goat, soaked just long enough to lose its sting. You mix it into the grain, watching it vanish beneath the surface. This is how it's done. Silence, hands, and steam. Side, armor clinks like glass in the cold. You hear boots moving in rows, voices low and clipped. No songs today, no drums, only the sound of readiness. Carry the first pot out, arms straining, feet slow on the frost. The men are lined up along the path, each with a bowl in hand. You pass without words, ladling the thick barley into each one. They nod their thanks, some with tight smiles, some with nothing at all. You notice how many of them don't eat, just hold the warmth. One soldier's hand shakes as he takes his portion. Not from fear, you think, but from too many nights sleeping on stone. He mutters something prayer or memory you can't tell. You move on. The line is long and the steam is fading. The prince is already mounted by the time you reach the command tent. His horse is restless, hooves pawing the earth, mouth foaming faintly. He doesn't look at you, not directly. But his head tilts as you approach. You place the bowl on the table beside him, stepping back into shadow. He dismounts slowly, movements deliberate, precise. He kneels just for a breath end, scoops the barley with his hand. No spoon, no ceremony, just hunger met quietly. He eats like he's somewhere else entirely. You don't interrupt. Behind him, a servant adjusts his cloak. Another checks the blade on his hip, wiping it with black cloth. The prince says nothing to either, but he does glance at you once, briefly, like he's measuring the weight of your silence. The sky shifts as they begin to move. First the scouts, then the horses, then the carts full of supplies. You walk beside the grain wagon, your hands on the edge of the wood. You're not a soldier, but you go where the food must go. The road out of Pella is dust and stone. You've never walked this far from the palace before. The horizon feels like a door you were never meant to open. But the wind is behind you now, and you don't look back. By midday, the heat settles on your shoulders like a second skin. The barley's gone cold in the pot, but no one cares. A few soldiers stop to chew it slowly, sitting on overturned shields. You hand them water from the leather skin. They drink without thanks. Child runs beside the caravan, bare feet coated in dust. You don't know his name, doesn't speak, but he helps you lift the next pot of food with steady arms. You nod. That's all it takes. That night the camp is quiet, tense. No feast, no fire, just dry bread and barley eaten in the dark. You watch the men sleep sitting up, sword still in hand. You sleep near the grain sacks again, dreaming of things that rot slowly. The morning comes fast, it's too fast, and with it, the first blood. You don't see the battle, but you hear it. The screaming, the horses, the metal tearing through air. You stay with the carts, kneeling behind the third wheel. You grip a wooden spoon like it could save you. Hours pass before they return. Fewer than before, mud on their boots, blood on their hands. They do not speak. They eat what's given. Your hands shake as you serve them, but you don't stop. One soldier asks for seconds. You give him the last of the barley. He doesn't finish it. His face is too pale. He sets the bowl down beside you and walks into the woods alone. He never comes back. Later, you wipe dried blood from the lip of the pot. It isn't yours, but you feel it like it is. The smell lingers, barley and blood, and it follows you into sleep that night, clinging like smoke. Scene 5. Your first night beneath the stars. The fires are small tonight, not out of scarcity, but intent. You were told not to draw attention. No bright flames, no singing. The battle took too much. The survivors sit in silence, chewing slowly. You carry the last of the bread from cart to cart, barefoot in the dust. There is no laughter now, no boasts, no wine. Only the clink of armor being unbuckled, the sigh of sore limbs. You place a bowl beside a young man who does not look up. Stares past you, eyes locked on something too far to name. The sky is wide, almost unnaturally so. Without the torches, the stars come closer, sharper. You sit on the edge of the camp, a crust of bread in your lap. The silence wraps around you like a wool cloak full of invisible threads. You chew slowly. The bread is stale but filling. Your hands are sore from lifting, your arms trembling when still. A goat bleats once in the dark, startled by some sound only it hears. And then the hush returns, heavier than before. Stars burn like tiny oil lamps in a temple roof. You try to count them, but they shift when you blink. They are not for counting, only watching. Somewhere nearby someone coughs. Someone else murmurs a prayer, too faint to know the words. You do not pray, but you do listen. And in this listening, something in you settles. Shadow moves past you. Not fast, not loud. It pauses beside the bread cart. You hold your breath. But it's only him, Alexander. Cloak drawn, alone. He doesn't look at you, but he knows you see him. He kneels beside the cart, fingers brushing the side. He doesn't eat. He just rests there, silent, as if grounding himself. Like he needs to touch something real, something plain. And bread, it seems, is enough for tonight. You don't speak. You wouldn't dare. But you shift slightly so he knows you're there. His eyes flick toward you, brief, unreadable, and then away again. He stands quiet as wind and disappears into the tents beyond. You remain lying down, heartbeat slowing. You do not feel fear, only a strange, low ache. It's like missing someone who hasn't left yet. It's like knowing you're part of something without being seen. The ground beneath you is rough, but familiar now. The fabric beneath your head still smells faintly of ash and oil. You pull your blanket tight across your shoulders and close your eyes. The wind carries dust, and under it something like lavender. Sleep does not come easily, but it comes. And when it does, it is deep and dark and full of nothing. No dreams, no visions. Just silence and stars, always the stars, still burning above your breath. When you wake, the sky is pale, the ground damp with dew. Your fingers are stiff, curled inward like they forgot to let go. A thin line of ants marches near your foot, carrying crumbs. You sit up slowly, and for a moment, nothing hurts. Then the day begins again. More barley, more bread, more knives scraping against wood. The fires are relit. The voices return, brittle and dry. And you begin walking again. Not toward glory, but toward hunger. The only light that remains from last night is within you. Small, flickering but steady. You carry it in your chest, just behind your ribs. And though no one will ask, you will keep it warm for all of them. Scene 6. A goat roasts at the temple. They set the fire before the sky turns gold. Not for warmth, not for the meal, but for the gods. The goat is led in quietly, without rope, as if it knows. You are told to carry the herbs. You do not speak. You just obey. The priests walk barefoot, their white robes smudged at the hem. They chant low, slower than breath, slower than fire. You walk behind them, the bowl in your hands trembling slightly. Inside, rosemary and crushed bay leaves mix with bitter smoke. The temple is not a building. It is stones in a circle, weathered, half-sunk into the earth like forgotten bones. No roof, no altar, just a raised slab of dust-worn marble. Here, they believe the gods hear more clearly, closer to sky. The goat makes no sound when they bind its legs. It does not fight. It does not cry. It only blinks slowly. The knife is sharp, but not hurried. The cut is practiced. The blood runs down the edge of the stone, into a trench in the ground. You don't flinch. Not anymore. You've served meat taken fresher than this, warmer. But here, with the chanting, the smoke, the silence, it feels different, not brutal, just ancient.
What?
The body is cleaned, stuffed with herbs from your bowl. The smell rises immediately. Salt, flesh, memory. They spit the meat on long metal rods, place it above the flame. The fat drips steadily, hissing as it touches coal. Alexander stands just beyond the circle, arms folded. He doesn't speak. He watches the sky, not the fire. His face is unreadable, cast in flickers of gold and smoke. He looks like someone expecting an answer to a question he hasn't asked. A general beside him murmurs something. Alexander nods. His eyes never leave the horizon. You wonder if he's asking the gods for victory or something smaller. Something only he can name, buried deep in quiet. You kneel beside the offering table, the second bowl in your hands. Figs dried and split. Pomegranates, seeded and slick. You arrange them carefully without touch, only fingertips. Balance matters. The gods notice what is crooked. The wind shifts. The fire bends slightly to the west. One priest whispers that it's a sign. Another says nothing. Alexander steps forward and drops a single olive into the flames. Ah, the smell is sudden, sharp, clean. No words are spoken aloud. Not now. This is the moment for silence, for thought, for fear. You feel it settle around the circle like a second skin, heavy, still waiting. Then it passes, as quickly as it came. The fire returns to its rhythm. The smoke softens. The priests begin to chant again, but it feels lighter now. The goat crackles. The skin darkens. The feast begins, but not for the soldiers. Not yet. This is food for the gods. It's for the air. You carry the first slice, burned at the edge, up the slope. You lay it on a flat rock and leave it, no turning back. Back at camp, the smell carries through every tent. Hunger tightens the air. Eyes follow you when you pass, but no one dares ask. They know the rules. The gods must eat first or not at all. Later, when darkness falls, smaller fires are lit. You help carve what's left from the spit, dividing it without favor. You eat the scraps, the burned edges, the pieces no one claims. But even they taste different, sacred, touched by something unseen. Alexander does not join the meal, stays near the stones, alone, long after the rest have left. You see him from a distance, his hands resting on his knees. He looks up once, then down, then closes his eyes. You think even kings need something to believe in? Even kings hope their offering is enough? You wrap the leftovers in cloth, place them in the sealed cart, and the smoke from the night still clings to your hair when you sleep. That night, you dream not of war, but of hands in the dirt. Planting herbs, placing stones, it's offering bread to something you can't see. And when you wake, your palms smell of rosemary. Though the bowl you carried is long since washed and gone. Scene 7, he touches the bowl himself. The morning is thick with dust and silence, not the silence of sleep. The kind that comes after blood, after orders, after something unseen has shifted. You wake with your back sore, your mouth dry, your hands cold. There's no fire yet, just the crack of boots on stone. Someone calls for barley, someone else for water. You move before they finish asking. Your body already knows the steps. Pot, spoon, cloth. Weight balanced in both arms. You carry the bowl through a path lined with shields. Some cracked, some still smeared with yesterday. The men barely glance up. Their hunger is shallow today. They eat like it's duty, not comfort. Like chewing is a command. At the edge of the camp, near the command tent, he waits. Not inside, not seated, not hidden by guards. Just standing there, beside a low table, tunic dusted with ash. His eyes on the horizon, as if something is coming he already sees. You don't speak when you approach. You never do. But your steps slow, hesitating slightly, unsure where to place the bowl. Before you can decide, his gaze drops. Not to you, to your hands. He lifts the bowl from your arms himself. It surprises you. Not the strength, but the gentleness. Fingers curled just beneath yours, warm, calloused, controlled. The weight shifts from your grip into his in one quiet motion. And for a moment, the world feels unnaturally still. He holds it like it means more than food. Not reverent, not greedy, just present. His thumb brushes the rim once, as if checking for cracks. Then he sits, cross-legged on the dirt, and begins to eat. It's no spoon, just his fingers, slow and methodical. The barley is still warm, steam curling in the morning chill. You remain standing, unsure if you're meant to leave. But he gestures slightly, not dismissal, permission. So you kneel quietly to the side, not close, not far, just within his reach if needed. He doesn't speak. But he doesn't turn away either. There's something in the silence between you. Heavy, but not unkind. A bee circles the rim of the bowl, drawn to the salt. He waves it off gently, his eyes still distant. Then, without looking, he extends the bowl back toward you, half finished, still warm from his hands. You take it, fingers brushing the spot where his had rested. The weight different now, not just food, but memory. He stands without a word, his cloak shifts in the wind, and with slow, steady steps, he walks toward the eastern ridge. You remain kneeling for a moment longer, the bowl in your lap. The morning bright but not warm. You feel something in your chest that isn't pride, isn't fear. Just a quiet hum, like knowing you were seen. Back at the kitchen, no one asks. They take the bowl from you, wash it with scalding water. You help grind herbs, salt fish, slice bread into silent portions. But your hands move differently now, slower, more precise. You think of his fingers. It's the way they moved. Not like a king, not like a child. Something in between. You wonder if he ate like that as a boy. If his mother ever watched him and thought, this one will conquer. That night you eat alone behind the grain sacks. The wind creeps through the fabric walls, carrying the scent of stone. And still, beneath your ribs, the warmth of the bowl lingers. You sleep, eventually. And in your dream, he hands you a bowl again. But this time, it's empty. And you know that means something. You wake just before the meaning reaches you. Scene 8. The dead do not eat. The camp is quieter this morning. It's not the calm of rest, but the kind that follows absence. You feel it the moment you step outside the storage tent. The way footsteps echo too far. The way voices fall short of sentences. You carry fewer bowls than yesterday, not because the load has lightened, but because the mouths have. The barley cooks just the same, but the pot seems too large now. You stir it slower, watching the grains rise like ghosts. The fires burn low and uneven. Soldiers sit in small clusters, some with eyes shut, some with none. You recognize one man's cloak lying folded beside a stone. Used to laugh when the bread was too hard. He's not here now. You do not ask who was lost. You never ask. They never tell. You only feel it in the rhythm of your root. The gap where a bowl used to go. The pause where hands no longer wait. The prince doesn't eat today. Walks the camp with his arms behind his back. He speaks softly with generals, gestures once toward the hills. But his mouth stays closed, and you can tell he hasn't tasted sleep. One of the older cooks refuses to speak. She kneads dough with trembling wrists, her lips bloodless. You watch her press her thumbs too deep into the crust. She does not notice. She just keeps going. At midday, a cart returns with what's left of the bodies. Wrapped still, stacked too neatly for peace. No one calls out. No one cries. They unload them beside the stream, under the sound of running water. You're told to prepare a small table. Not for them, not for the dead, but for the ones who buried them. You slice fruit, boil herbs, brush ash from the edges of flatbread. The bowl shakes as you set it down. No one steadies your hand. A man you don't know eats with both hands. He doesn't blink, doesn't chew, just swallows. His fingers are stained with soil. His tunic torn at the collar. You hand him water. He drinks until it spills down his chin. Later you return to the place near the fire where one of the lost used to sit. You kneel, bowl in hand, unsure what to do. There is no one there to take it. But still, you place it down. Just in case. Just in case something lingers longer than we know. The bread inside is still warm. Steam curls upward, lifting into the air like breath that was never exhaled. You sit beside it, watching until the crust begins to harden. So only then do you rise. Only then do you move on. That evening, the barley is served cold. No one lights the pots. No one asks why. The men eat in silence. Not because they must, but because it feels right. To speak would be to disturb something sacred, or gone. You scrape the bottom of the pot with your wooden spoon. The grain clings to the edge like it knows it isn't needed anymore. You eat alone, again. Always. But tonight it feels different. Not lonely, just ... emptied. The stars are faint tonight, clouded by dust. You lie on your side, curled toward the wall of the tent. Our fingers still smell like thyme and vinegar. You close your eyes and try not to think about the missing bowl. In your dream, the bread is warm again. There is laughter. A full table. A name spoken, though you don't remember whose. But the seat beside you is always empty. And when you wake, the space is still there, untouched and waiting. Scene 9. The wine turns bitter in Egypt. The wind changes before the land does. It grows heavier, as if soaked in something unseen. Your clothes cling to your skin, wet before the sweat even starts. And still, you walk. You always walk. Where the food must go. Egypt doesn't welcome you with shade. The sun sits high and still, unmoving, watching everything. The sand is pale, almost white, but it blinds you just the same. Your eyes sting, your lips crack, and your fingers burn on the pots. You stop using fire for cooking. The sun is enough. Bread left out in the open hardens in hours. You soften it with water, soaking it in red wine until it darkens. But even the wine changes here. It turns bitter before it turns warm. They say it's the air. Too dry, too still. But you taste something else in it. Something old. You swallow carefully, as if the dust might scratch from inside. The flavor reminds you of metal. Silence held too long. Alexander stands before a ruined temple, half buried in the sand. He places his hand against the stone, whispers something you don't hear. No generals with him, no guards. Just you, waiting with a small bowl. He does not take it. He doesn't look back. He stays in the past. You sit near the carts that night, under no stars. Even the sky here forgets to move. The darkness stays still. Your hands shake as you pour the wine. It spills over the rim. You lick it from your fingers. It tastes like it's been mourning something. The men speak less in Egypt. Their mouths dry too quickly. Their throats ache from sand. One soldier coughs into his bowl and walks away before finishing. You collect what's left. There's always something left. A woman joins the camp. Not a wife, not a servant. No one says her name aloud. She wears blue silk, soft and too clean. Her feet do not touch the mud. But when she passes, the air smells different, sweet like crushed fruit. You are told to bring her wine. You carry it in a brass cup, polished until your face stares back. She does not thank you. She does not drink. She looks past you, at something far away, and sets the cup aside. The cook tells you not to take offense. The ones who never eat are the ones who carry the most hunger. You nod, though you do not understand. You think hunger lives in the belly, but maybe it doesn't. One night a man offers you a different drink. Not wine, not water, something brewed from a root you don't know. It tastes like smoke, like the space between words. You drink it slowly, it makes your tongue go numb. Later you sit near the river, not close enough to touch it, just close enough to smell it. The water here moves without sound, like it knows it's watched. You dip your cloth in it, cool, real, almost kind. Alexander visits the temple again. This time, you stay behind. He does not ask for food. You wait beside the cart, fingers tracing circles in the dust. He returns at dusk. He doesn't speak, but he eats everything you brought. The wine, though, he spits it out. One sharp movement, a glance toward the sky. He hands the cup back without a word. His jaw is tight. You do not refill it, not this time. At night, you dream of rivers turning red, of grapes rotting on the vine, their sweetness swallowed by time. You dream of a tongue that forgets the taste of home. And when you wake, you know, even wine remembers where it came from. You pour it out into the sand the next morning. No one sees you do it. No one asks where it went, but the earth darkens briefly, like it too was thirsty. And the smell rises for a moment before disappearing completely. Scene 10. Alexandria is born in sand. The air changes before the walls rise. You feel it in your chest first. The weight, the waiting. There is no city here yet. It's only tents, carts, voices, and dust. But the men say the name already. They say it like it's always been. Alexandria. You whisper it to yourself as you carry the morning bread. Still warm, still soft, wrapped in thin cloth damp from your hands. The wind tries to steal it, but you walk low, steady, anchored. Alexander walks the outline himself, a staff in his hand, his shadow stretching across the flat land. He drags the point in the sand, slow and sure, leaving no question. Where he walks, stone will come. Where he points, the city will grow. You are told not to speak today, not even to each other. The ground is being marked. Even the carts stay still, their wheels wrapped in cloth. You step lightly, bowl in hand, as if afraid to bruise the future. The soldiers work with unusual quiet. They pass bricks, hammer wood, lay cords across invisible lines. You feed them in shifts, a few at a time, beneath makeshift shade. Their mouths chew fast. No stories, no songs. Just sweat. A well is dug. Out. Not deep enough for now, but the water rises clear and cold. You pour it over your fingers when no one watches. It smells like nothing. Pure, plain, new. At midday the sun sharpens and the shadows vanish. The bread hardens quickly. You tear it into smaller pieces. Less to waste, less to chew. Easier on dry mouths. You taste one piece yourself. It tastes like dust and pride. Alexander does not eat with the men. Walks among the stone markers, eyes narrowed, shirt soaked. Gestures to the east, then the south, adjusting lines no one dares cross. You wait near the shade, watching a bowl in your lap untouched. When he finally approaches, the wind picks up. He sits without speaking, dust swirling around his boots. You offer the bowl, does not reach for it. Instead, he speaks low, more to himself than to you. This city will outlive me, he says. Not a wish, not a boast. Just fact, already weathered by time. You do not answer. You never do. But you place the bowl down beside him, careful not to spill. He eats with 2 fingers, slowly. His eyes remain on the unfinished horizon. You feel him calculating not just stone and streets, but legacy. A city carved from nothing, from heat, from sweat, from hunger. Later, children run between carts, laughing for the first time in days. They chase each other with fig pits and dry reeds, barefoot in the sand. You hand one of them a piece of fruit. He takes it silently, then runs. The sound of his feet reminds you of home, though you no longer know where that is. A woman hums near the edge of camp. She's washing cloth in the shallow basin, her song low and cracked. You don't know the words, but the tune wraps around your ribs. It's the kind of sound that makes even bread taste softer. That night, fires light the edges of the future city. They flicker in patterns, straight lines, clear corners, silent order. You sit on the sand beside a crate of grain, hands open to the heat. The smoke rises slow, and you imagine it curling into pillars yet to be. You eat last, as always. A spoonful of lentils, 2 olives, bread to dry to break. But the taste doesn't matter tonight. The act of eating does. The ritual of staying alive. Before sleep, you walk to the edge of the site. The stars are faint, but the land feels full, not empty. You whisper the name again, Alexandria, and something in the wind answers, soft and low like breath. In your dreams, there are walls, tall, white, shining. Still serving. Even in the city that bears his name, you remain behind the curtain. And yet, something in you knows you helped build it too. Seen 11 Persian suites for a Macedonian king, the palace is not Macedonian. Its walls are too smooth, too wide, its ceilings too high for comfort. The rugs beneath your feet swallow sound, and your footsteps vanish into silence. Even the air tastes different, heavy with rose and cinnamon. You're not in Pella anymore. We're somewhere in Persia, though no one says the name aloud. Alexander walks these halls like he owns them, but he still looks at the walls, like they are watching him back, like they remember other kings. You carry the tray with both hands, arms stiff from the weight. Today, there are no lentils, no barley, no boiled goat. Today there are sweets, honey layered in crisp pastry, figs soaked in wine, and a bowl of something soft, white, dusted with crushed pistachios. A servant from the Persian kitchens walks beside you. She speaks no Greek, you speak no Persian. But your eyes meet when the tray shifts, and her hand steadies yours. And that is enough. You are both carrying something too delicate to drop. The room you enter is dim, lit by hanging oil lamps. Curtains drift at the windows, brushing your arms like cool breath. Alexander is seated on a platform surrounded by maps and scrolls. His tunic is open at the collar, his hair damp with heat. He doesn't look up when you enter. You kneel beside the low table, placing the tray down with care. You feel your own breath slowing, syncing with the rhythm of the room. Time moves differently here. Thicker, slower, more certain. He reaches for the smallest dish first, the white one. Creamy, fragrant, unfamiliar. He lifts it with his fingertips, scoops a small portion with the back of a spoon, tastes it, pauses, then sets it down again without speaking. You wait, kneeling, your hands resting on your thighs. He tastes another, a candied date, split and stuffed with crushed walnut. His eyes close briefly, not in delight. In memory, like he's somewhere else again, somewhere farther east. He speaks after a long time. They prepare food like it's poetry. His voice is soft, low, not meant for the room. You nod once, even though you know it wasn't a question. Behind you, the Persian servant bows and steps out. You remain still as the tapestry's hanging behind him. He shifts, leans forward slightly, picks up a folded pastry. It flakes in his fingers, golden, delicate, sweet with saffron. You think of how long it took to make. The dough rolled thin, brushed with honey, layered with care, folded again and again by hands that have done this for generations. And now it rests on his tongue, gone in 2 heartbeats. A faint smile touches his lips, the first in days. He glances toward you, not a command, not a dismissal, just awareness. He sees you, still here, still holding space, still bringing in the world, one bowl at a time. Later, you carry the empty dishes back through the long halls. The rugs still swallow your steps. The oil lamps flicker low. In the kitchen, the woman from before waits beside the basin. You place the tray down. She doesn't speak, but she nods again. Together, you rinse the bowls in rose water. The scent clings to your fingers long after. You do not know her name. She does not know yours. But for a moment, you both belong to the same silence. That night, the camp outside the palace is quiet. Soldiers eat simple meals, beans, flatbread, watered wine. But you sit apart, letting the scent of pistachio and honey stay in your memory. You chew your bread slowly, but your mouth tastes something sweeter. You dream of sugar, of your hands folding paper-thin pastry in a room without war, of laughter in a language you don't understand, of serving something made not from hunger, but from love. When you wake, the scent is gone, but your hands remember the shape of the bowl, and the quiet inside you still tastes like cardamom.
Like something beautiful that never had to last. As scene 12.
The servant who vanished before dawn. You remember her by the way she walked, not fast, not loud, just always in the right place at the right time. She carried trays like they were made of glass, never spilling, never slowing. You watched her often, not because she spoke, but because she didn't need to. She arrived weeks ago, during the crossing through the valley. No one introduced her, no one claimed her. One day she was simply there, folding linen beside the spice cart. Her hands were stained with saffron. Her eyes never lifted. You shared a meal only once, a dusk meal, quiet, behind the tents, where the shadows pooled thick. She offered you half a fig, soft, sweet, and warm from the sun. You took it. You said nothing. She nodded like she understood everything. Her hair was always bound in the same cloth, pale gray, almost blue. She hummed when she worked, low, tuneless, steady. You never asked where she came from. It didn't matter. Not here. Not in a place that swallowed names. The night before she vanished, the moon was swollen. The fire cracked strangely, sending up sparks that smelled like fennel. She passed you in the kitchen, carrying a bowl of almonds glazed in honey. She didn't speak. But her shoulder brushed yours light, intentional, gone. You saw her again just before dawn. You'd risen early, as you always did, to fetch water. She stood near the edge of the camp, barefoot, arms loose at her sides. Her back was to you, and her silhouette shimmered in the gray light. You thought of calling out, but didn't. Some part of you knew it wasn't a moment for sound. She tilted her head slightly, as if listening to something distant. Then she stepped beyond the last tent, and the sky swallowed her whole. They searched, but not well. It's not long. A commander cursed the delay. A cook muttered it was the heat. But no one spoke her name, 'cause no one had ever asked it. Her bedroll was left behind, neatly folded. One fig rested on top, unripe. Hard, still green. You took it, unsure why. You pressed it into your satchel and said nothing. Even now, you do not know what you meant to keep. That day, the sun rose angry and red, the bread overcooked, the wine soured before it was poured. Even Alexander said little. His voice tight, his movements faster. You knew the rhythm had shifted. Something had been taken. In the quietest hour of that night, you sat where she had once sat. The fig in your palm, your knees drawn in, your breath slow. You crushed the fig softly, felt the juice run between your fingers. It wasn't sweet, but it stayed with you all the same. You dreamed of footsteps on sand, of trays abandoned mid-path, of a humming sound without a mouth. You reached for her in the dark, and your hand touched nothing. Not air, not cloth, not memory. It's just the ache of absence. No one mentioned her the next morning, not in passing, not in anger, not in mourning. But when the almond bowl returned to the kitchen, it was empty, and her gray cloth was folded beneath it, waiting to be noticed. You kept that cloth. You didn't tell anyone? You tucked it under your belt, next to the satchel of herbs? You told yourself it meant nothing, but some part of you still walks slower, hoping to see her again. Scene 13. Babylon opens its gates. The gates are too wide to measure with your eyes. Carved beasts watch from the walls, frozen in painted relief. Their eyes shimmer with lapis, gold, and something older than fear. You stand beside the cart holding a bowl of fruit, and you feel very small. Babylon does not open with sound. It opens with stillness, with heat, with breath held too long. People do not cheer. They watch from shaded doorways. Their silence says more than any horn or drum. You walk beside the supply train, careful not to stare. The streets are clean, swept in careful lines, lined with palms and dust. Even the shadows feel orderly here, softer, slower, curved. And you realize this city was not made for war. Alexander rides ahead, flanked by men you do not know. He does not look back. He doesn't need to. His shoulders hold the weight of everything now, of victory, of myth, of dust. But his hands still rest loosely on the reins, as if uncertain. You are told to set up near the river. The Euphrates moves like glass, wide and without urgency. You wash your hands in it slowly, watching the grime lift and drift. For a moment, you feel clean, then the sun dries you again. The kitchens are relocated beneath a long canvas canopy. You line up clay pots, stack loaves, stir honey into warm wine. The air is thick with cardamom, saffron, crushed dates. This is not a soldier's meal. This is a meal for conquerors. A golden bowl is brought out, polished, rimmed with thin emerald. You've never touched anything like it. You're not allowed to. But they let you fill it. Lentils, lamb, soft flatbread soaked in oil. It rests in your hands like a crown that burns. The servant who leads you is quiet, older, Babylonian. His robes are dark, his fingers ink-stained, his walk impossibly slow. He gestures with one hand, a subtle tilt of the wrist. You follow without question. Without sound, you are brought into a chamber of blue stone. The walls shimmer with light that has no source. Alexander sits alone at the center, robes loose, bare feet against mosaic tile. The room smells of figs, dust, and something you can't name. You kneel. You place the golden bowl on the platform. He watches you. Not sharply, not coldly, just long enough. Then he says, "Stay." One word, one thread pulled loose. You do. You kneel beside the wall, hands resting on your thighs. He eats slowly, pulling bread apart with quiet fingers. Between each bite, his gaze shifts to the map, the ceiling, the empty chair. You do not speak. You breathe like you are not there. After a while, he leans back, his hands stained faintly with sauce, his chest rising with a quiet sigh. Then, a pause, a glance, his voice soft, almost unsure. Do you know what this place was before us, you think, but only nod? You do not know the words. He smiles faintly. Neither do I. Says it like a confession, like something that keeps him from sleep. Feels something tighten in the room. Not fear, something older. He stands, his footsteps echoing against the stone. He leaves. The bowl half full, he leaves the map behind. As he exits, he places one hand on your shoulder, a breath's weight. Then he's gone, swallowed by shadow and silk. You remain in the blue room a little longer. You eat the last piece of bread from the golden bowl. Slowly, it tastes like honey and dust, like something too soft to last. You rise quietly and carry the bowl back through the hall of beasts. Outside, the sun is beginning to fall behind the stone towers. The city does not cheer, the people still watch, still wait. You pass a child playing with a broken cup, scooping sand like it's treasure. You offer him a fig. He takes it without looking up. That night, the city breathes beneath you. Your bedroll lies against foreign stone, but your body sinks as if it remembers. You dream of blue walls, of gold-rimmed silence, of bread shared but never spoken. And when you wake, your hands still smell of oil and thyme. Scene 14, a feast. With too many eyes, the table stretches farther than it should. It disappears at both ends into candlelight and soft smoke. The plates are gold, the wine is dark. The silence is dressed in silk. And everywhere you look, someone is watching someone else. You carry the first tray slowly, steady between your hands. Dates soaked in rosewater, bread twisted into braids. You step over the rugs, your sandals muffled by luxury. All around you, eyes follow your movements like knives. This is not a soldier's feast. No laughter, no spilled drink, no burnt fingers reaching for meat.
Right.
Here men speak through glances and small, sharp smiles. Every word tastes like it's been practiced too many times. You place the tray down beside Alexander's seat. He doesn't look at you. Not yet. He's deep in talk with a Persian noble. The man's robes shine like smoke. His rings catch the firelight. But his smile is brittle. It's the kind that knows how to disappear. To Alexander's left, a general drums his fingers softly. He's eaten nothing, though his plate is full. His eyes flick from mouth to mouth, calculating. Even here, in this room of roasted lamb and wine, the war continues. You step back into the shadows behind the serving table. More food is brought, stewed apricots, honeyed almonds, warm goat. The scents blur together in a wave that coats your skin. You breathe through your mouth to keep from drowning in sweetness. At one point, Alexander lifts his goblet and speaks. The room hushes, not from awe, but from habit. You can't hear the words. You don't need to. You see them in the way people lean forward, nod, pretend. He drinks deeply this time. More than usual, his knuckles pale around the stem of the goblet, and when he sets it down, it trembles just slightly. You are the only one close enough to notice. A woman with silver-threaded braids laughs too loudly. The sound bounces off the stone walls, too sharp, Too long. It dies quickly, like a flame in damp cloth. You glance at Alexander. He doesn't move, but his jaw tightens. One servant spills a pitcher, crashes to the floor, wine staining the rug like blood. He kneels too quickly to clean it, breathing hard, head bowed. You feel the sting in your chest for him, though no one else reacts. You return to the table with a small dish of crushed mint and honey. You place it near Alexander's hand without meeting his eyes. But as you turn, his voice stops you. Soft, dry. Who made this? Oh. Slowly glance back. Your mouth opens, but another servant answers a lie. He takes credit. Alexander nods once, dismisses it. But you know he knew. You saw it in the pause before his breath. The night stretches. The plates empty and refill, endlessly. The men grow louder, slower, their words losing shape. But Alexander stays quiet, watching, collecting, enduring. You notice he stopped eating. His bowl is full, untouched. His fingers stained only by wine. You wonder if the food tastes wrong tonight, or if he no longer trusts the taste of anything at all. You step outside the hall once the room begins to sway. Not from the wine, from the weight of too many glances. You breathe in the cold night air, tasting dust and stars. You sit by the wall, alone, a plate in your lap forgotten. The bread is cold. The meat too sweet, you chew without hunger. You swallow without want. But still, you eat. Because it's what you do. Because someone must dot inside. The music plays. Soft, hollow. A flute, half-hearted. A drum touched only once. And still, the feast goes on. Endless, heavy, polished. A theater of power with no stage curtain. You fall asleep against the stone, plate empty at your side. You dream of a table that loops back into itself. No matter where you walk, you're always behind someone else. Always serving. Always. Unseen. Always watch TOT scene 15. You burn your fingers on the lamb. The meat slips on the skewer before you catch it. Hot fat spills down your palm, searing deep into your skin. You do not cry out. Not here. Not in front of them. You only breathe. In sharply and hold it. Swallow the sound. The fire crackles like it knows what it's done. The spit turns slowly, too slowly, as the lamb chars and glistens. You pull your hand back, pressing it into your tunic. The burn pulses like a second heartbeat. Deep, steady, quiet. Someone glances toward you. You look away first. The other servants say nothing. There is no comfort among them. Pain is private here, carried like trays, quietly and without spilling. You return to your task with your left hand. Slower now, more careful. The lamb must be served before sundown. Alexander requested it himself, or so the cooks say. It must be seared just right, crisp on the outside, soft beneath. Nothing. You only listen for the sound it makes when carved. You wrap your fingers in linen soaked with water and vinegar. It helps for a moment, then the pain returns, stronger. Still you season the meat, drizzle honey over the brown skin. You lift the tray, heavy, fragrant, trembling. The hall is half lit when you enter. Alexander sits alone, one leg folded beneath him, hands resting open. He looks tired in a way that has no shape. Not from battle, from something slower, deeper, older. You kneel, setting the tray before him. The lamb steams gently, the scent thick. With salt and spice, he stares at it for a long time before touching it. Then his eyes flick to your hand, to the bandage wrapped tight. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. The pause in his breath says enough. He picks up the knife, carves the meat himself. No servants. No display, just quiet, deliberate motion. You bow your head, not in pain, in discipline. The ache in your fingers crawls up your arm now, but you do not move. You do not shift. Do not speak. You are part of the room. Like the tray, like the bowl, like the wall. Alexander eats slowly, chewing with focus, as if tasting memory. He nods once to no one in particular. Maybe to the lamb. Then, softly, without looking at you, he says. Some things are worth the burn. You don't answer? You're not sure you believe that? But you remember the meat sliding from the skewer, the hiss of fat, the way your hand closed too quickly, protecting what wasn't yours to protect. But still, you did. Later, back in the dark behind the kitchens, you unwrap the cloth and watch the skin blister. The burn is ugly now, raw, and wet and angry. You rinse it with water that's already gone warm. No one tends to it. There's no healer. Only an old man who hands you a leaf says, "Press this and rest." You nod. Not in thanks, just in habit. Then you lie down, the bandage still damp, the pain still sharp. You do not sleep easily. Each time your hand brushes the blanket, fire flares under your skin. But somewhere in the slow, dark hours, you dream of lamb, sweetness, of smoke, of something earned and almost gone. And in the dream, he eats it with both hands, and there is no crown. No war, no empire behind him. Just you, kneeling nearby, your hand still burning, but your breath finally calm. Scene 16, he speaks to you alone. The room is quiet in the way only royal rooms are. The silence feels deliberate, shaped like stone, thick and watching. Curtains hang still as if the air has forgotten how to move. You are told to bring wine, but only for him. No one else. You enter barefoot, as instructed. The stone is cool beneath your soles, smooth and dark. You hold the cup with both hands, the rim warmed by your breath. He is already seated, not at the table, but on the floor. Alexander sits cross-legged, sleeves loose, hair unbound. His eyes are not fixed on scrolls or maps. They're fixed on something just beyond you, something not in the room. You pause. You do not speak. He gestures toward the low table, a flick of 2 fingers. You set the wine down gently, careful not to touch the wood, but as you move to step back, his voice catches you. Stay. The word lands soft, not a command. More, like an echo, like he said it first to himself. You stop beside the curtain, unsure where to look. Your hands fold in front of you, hiding the burns still healing. He leans back against the cushion behind him, takes the cup slowly, holds it but doesn't drink. The light catches on the wine's surface, dark red, almost black. He turns it. In his hand, watching it shift like thought. They think I'm becoming something else, he says. You're not sure if it's meant for you, but no one else is there. I cross one more border, take one more city, and they say I've changed. He finally drinks one sip, and stillness again. You do not nod, you do not agree. We're not here to answer kings. But your breath slows, just enough to show. You're listening, and that's all he needs. They don't understand, he says, quieter now. What it means to carry so much and still feel ... small. He closes his eyes for a moment, not in weariness, in memory, in something colder than rest. You think of the tray you carried in, still warm at the edges. Of all the meals he never finished, all the bowls left untouched. You wonder what he sees when he looks at food. If it reminds him of home. Or of what was lost on the way to here. He shifts slightly, eyes opening, not sharply, not as a king, just as someone who has not spoken in a while. I used to know the names of everyone who served me, he says, then pauses. Do I know yours? Mouth opens, then closes again. You shake your head. Single, slow movement. You feel the weight of it more than the shame. He nods once, as if he expected that. He drinks again, then speaks softer than before. Still, you stay. 3 words. Simple, but full of something unfinished. Not gratitude. Not sorrow. Just truth. You wonder what he sees in you? A shadow? A mirror? A servant who does not ask to be remembered? But you do not move. Because even in silence, you are the one who bears his hunger. He sets the cup down, half full, stands slowly, barefoot-like. You, slower than usual. And as he passes, he stops, just beside your shoulder. His hand brushes your arm. It's not by mistake. You do not flinch. You do not breathe. His palm rests there only for a moment. Then he leaves, robes brushing the stone. Behind him, vanishing into quiet, and the room becomes heavier once he's gone. You sit on the cushion he left behind. Just for a moment, it's just long enough to feel the warmth he gave off. Your hand rests near the wine, the edge of the cup still damp. You do not drink. You never would, but the scent stays with you. That night, you cannot sleep. Not from fear, from something else, something like being seen. You lie in the dark with your hands folded against your chest, and replay his voice, softer than linen, inside your ribs. Scene 17, the knife in the pomegranate. You carry the fruit carefully, wrapped in damp cloth. It stains through almost immediately, a soft red bloom spreading outward. Even before it's cut, the pomegranate feels alive in your hands, heavy, pulsing with juice, full of something waiting to spill. The courtyard is shaded but still hot. Stone radiates warmth from every direction, the kind that seeps into bone. You step softly, passing the guards, the scribes, the men who never look down. They do not see you. They only see what you carry. The tray is already set when you arrive. 2 cups. A knife, a folded cloth, nothing more. Alexander stands at the far edge, barefoot again, his back to the table. His arms are crossed behind him. He's watching a tree that doesn't move. You place the fruit gently on the plate. The cloth beneath it soaks through, color bleeding into. Silk. You unfold the linen without speaking, without breathing too loud. He turns only after the knife catches the light. He approaches slowly, like a man unsure what the day might hold. You do not rise. You remain still beside the tray. He stops beside the table, rests his hand on the handle of the knife. It's not a weapon, not in this moment. But it could be. Without speaking, he cuts into the fruit. Not gently, not with care. A single, sharp motion, too fast. The rind splits open, with a soft crack, juice spilling across the plate. It runs toward the edge, thick and bright, almost like blood. He pauses then, eyes fixed on the pulp. You wait, hands still, spine straight. The wind moves the leaves above, casting shadows that flicker across his face. He breathes once, slow. Then picks out a seed. He eats it without chewing, closes his eyes, then opens them. His fingers now stained red, dripping slightly down his palm. He looks at you for the first time, and this time it's different. There's something behind his eyes you can't read. Not anger, not hunger, not sorrow. Something sharper. The kind of look a man gives before a war, or after a lie. You feel it in your stomach before you understand it in your mind. He picks up the knife again, not with threat, but with weight. He turns it once, slowly the blade catching the light. Then, softly he says, "Sometimes things must be broken. To be sweet, you nod, though your throat is dry." He places the knife down, presses his stained fingers to the cloth. The red spreads outward, blooming like something alive. Then he turns and walks away, leaving the tray behind. You sit in the silence that follows. The fruit still open, at a knife cooling on the plate. The juice stains your fingers as you clean it. Slow, deliberate, quiet. You suck the pulp from your thumb without thinking. It's bitter. Later, when you rinse the tray in the basin, the water turns pink. You watch it swirl, sinking into the cracks of the stone floor. The knife lies beside you, clean now, but no less sharp. You wrap it in cloth. Before returning it, you don't know why. That night, the smell of pomegranate stays in your hair. Even as the fires dim and the talking fades, it clings to you. You dream of it, split open, warm, pressed into a hand that shakes. You wake before dawn, heart pounding, your palm closed around nothing. Scene 18, in the shadow of Susa's. The columns rise like trees carved from bone. Tall, smooth, endless, each one holding the weight of sky and memory. Susa does not whisper like other cities. It stands, it waits, forgets nothing. You walk between the pillars with your tray held close. The wind here does not move fast. It drifts, high and dry. Your robe brushes against the stone, and it feels too fine for your skin. They made you wear it. You don't know whose it was before. The cloth is deep green, embroidered with thread that catches gold. The sleeves are longer than your arms. Fit to loose at the shoulder, you've worn kitchen ash for years, and now they cover you in silk. Not for you. Never for you. For the illusion of what you serve today is not a feast. Not quite. It is a wedding. Alexander marries Roxana. That's what they say. The girl from the mountains, the one no one sees for long. She appears in flash, and veil, then disappears again, quieter than fog. You are sent to the inner hall before the guests arrive, to place fruit, to light candles, to lay out trays, not to be touched. Everything smells of oil and myrrh, of linen kept too long in cedar, chests. You do not know what love feels like, but this does not feel like it. The table is long, longer than the one in Babylon. But no one will sit there tonight. Only stand, only watch. You line the figs along the carved dish, spacing them like they touch a 7 to a row, skin unbroken. Sweetness sealed behind silence. Roxana passes you once. She moves like she's already left, eyes focused far ahead. Her veil brushes your arm, but her face never turns. She's stepping in too, or if she was told to forget. Alexander arrives later, steps echoing against the stone. He's dressed in white, with bands of copper on his arms. His hair is damp, not from water, from something else. You wonder if he washed off the last war, or if it still clings beneath the scent. He walks past you, stops, looks down, sighs. Scan the tray, then your robe, then your face. He doesn't speak, but his head tilts slightly, as if trying to remember, or trying to decide if he's supposed to. Then he keeps walking. The moment vanishes, like breath on cold metal. You remain, pillar behind pillars, a shadow dressed in borrowed thread. You breathe in slow. You steady your hands. You do not drop. The tray. The music begins with flutes. Low, winding, more smoke than sound. The guests enter in pairs, robes sweeping the floor like river water. You are forgotten before they even see you. You stand near the wall, between two empty urns, your back straight, your arms at rest, your fingers still burning from yesterday. The candles flicker as Roxana approaches the altar. She does not tremble. She does not smile. She only kneels. The vows are said in a language you don't know, but the meaning is clear in the way Alexander looks at her, not like a man in love, like a man watching something close that cannot be touched, like he knows. Even now, it will all pass through his hands like sand. When the music rises again, the food is uncovered. You move with the others, silent as always, refilling cups, replacing trays. You catch a general's eye by accident. He frowns, then looks away. He doesn't recognize you in this robe. You don't correct him. The night grows heavy with scent, lamb fat, wine, crushed petals. You do not eat. You do not taste, but it clings to your skin. You carry the tray back toward the inner room, your sleeves soaked in honey. And as you pass one column, your heel catches on a crack in the stone. You stumble. Just once. Just enough for one grape to fall from the dish. It rolls in a perfect circle before stopping beneath Roxana's chair. No one sees. But you feel the blood rush to your ears. You retrieve it, quickly, quietly, and when you rise, she is looking at you. Not cruelly, not kindly, just looking. Like she knows this robe does not belong to you either. Later, you sit outside the chamber, hands folded in your lap. The robe is stained now. Your knees ache. Your mouth is dry. But no one has sent you away. Not yet. Not tonight. You feel the silk on your shoulders. Heavy. Wrong. Still warm. You sleep against the column's base and dream of fig seeds cracking between your teeth, of someone else's wedding, someone else's wine, a robe that no longer fits, no matter how tightly you pull the thread. Scene 19 rain in the desert. It comes without warning, no cloud, no thunder. Just the scent, first sharp, dark, metallic, then a drop, cold as riverstone, hitting the back of your neck. Suddenly the desert breathes like it hasn't in years. You look up from the bread cart, blinking through the dust. Another drop, then another. Then all at once, it falls, not gentle, not soft. Rain that strikes like footsteps. It's like memory crashing through silence. The flower was left uncovered. Shh. You scramble to pull the cloth across the open sacks, but it's too late. The air turns thick. The powder clumps in your hands. It sticks to your skin like guilt, wet and useless. The other servants are running now, shouting, laughing. The guards curse, dragging cloaks over their armor. Someone drops a jug of oil, and it vanishes into the mud. But you stay still, kneeling, watching the ground drink. The desert changes in seconds. Cracks disappear. Sand stiffens to clay. The scent of fire smoke is replaced by petrichor new to you, and heavy enough to make you forget you're hungry. Alexander steps out of his tent without his cloak, walks into the rain as if he's chasing something. His hair flattens to his skull. Water streaks down his chest. He smiles. You've seen him smile before, but not like this. You stay beneath the canopy, soaked to the elbows. The dough will not rise tonight. The pots are flooded. And still, no one seems to care. The storm has taken their voices, replaced them with something wordless. One of the cooks begins to sob. She's holding a bowl of soaked lentils, ruined beyond repair. Her sobs are not loud, it's just steady, old, worn out. You reach for her hand, unsure why, and she lets you. Later, the camp is quiet. The rain slows to a whisper, then stops, leaving steam in its place. You walk barefoot, the mud sucking at your heels. The bread has collapsed in the ovens. It smells like failure. Alexander returns at dusk, his robes dripping, face calm. You wait by the tent, a bowl of figs in your hands, already knowing he does not ask for food. He does not take the tray. He walks past you, his palm brushing your shoulder. Without thought, inside the fire burns low. You sit beside the dying coals, rubbing water from your fingers. The silence feels different now, not hollow, but full. As if the rain filled something no one remembered was empty. You press your hands into the warm ash, not to clean them, just to feel something dry again. The cook hums behind you, a tune broken by breath, and you join her. Quiet. One note behind. One note beneath. The figs are never eaten. You leave them on the tray, and they wrinkle slowly in the heat. But you do not throw them out. Not tonight. They are ruined. But they are still whole. When you sleep, you dream of mud-covered bread, and a hand reaching into the sky to catch water that doesn't fall. And when you wake, the storm is gone, but your hands still smell of rain and fruit and silence. Scene 20, the march to the end of the world. The heat comes with no wind, no breath from the sky, no movement in the leaves. Even the flies slow, down, too tired to buzz. And still, the boots march. The carts creak. The hunger follows. You pack the bread in cloth damp from the last rain. It spoils by midday, black threads curling from the crust. There's no time to bake again. No wood. Left for fire. So you serve what you can, mold and all. Eat it anyway. The road is not a road anymore. Just cracked earth and scorched roots and stone that cuts. Your feet bleed again. You don't bandage them this time. The pain is background now, like the sun, like the silence. Alexander rides ahead, too far to see clearly. His cloak is pale, stained with dust and sweat. Some say he's chasing the sea, others say the sky. But you know it's something deeper, something farther. Something without a name. You carry only what matters, the barley sack. A small pan, one dull knife. The water skin is half full, and you've stopped checking it. What's left will last or it won't. You've stopped asking the difference. A boy collapses beside the grain cart. No one picks him up. No one weeps. You keep walking. Then you turn back. You tuck a fig into his pocket. Just one, just in case. By night, the stars feel farther away, like they've stepped back, watching with cold eyes. The soldiers sleep in. Clusters backs to each other, knives under their arms. You eat alone, chewing hard bread until your jaw aches. The lentils won't boil. You soak them in what little water remains. They swell halfway, then stop, like they know this isn't home. You chew them raw. You don't notice the taste anymore. Alexander doesn't ask for meals. Not now. Not this deep into the silence. You leave bowls outside his tent. Sometimes they're touched, sometimes not. Either way, you keep leaving them. The maps are gone, burned, lost, forgotten. Now, there's only horizon. Flat, wide. The color of metal. And feet that keep moving because they don't remember how to stop. One morning, the flower is alive with bugs. Tiny things writhing, whispering as they move through the sack. You sift them out with your fingers, not for the soldiers. For yourself, you will eat it anyway. You dream of your mother's hands, not her voice, not her face, just the shape of her palms kneading dough. You try to remember what she baked first. You cannot. Only that it was warm and round. And enough one soldier tears a loaf in half and gives you the smaller piece. He doesn't look at you. You don't thank him. But when you eat it, you close your eyes. And for 3 seconds, it doesn't feel like marching. That night, the wind returns. Hot, dry, full of sand that cuts like knives against your cheeks. You wrap your head in the cloth you once used to dry figs. It smells like home, the sweat or something. Close to it, you sleep sitting up, your back against the wheel of a broken cart. Your arms wrapped around the barley pan, your ribs poking through your robe. And in your dream, the sea appears, but it's dry and cracked, and full of bowls left untouched. Scene 21, you steal a fig from the king's tray, you tell yourself. It wasn't stealing, not truly. Not in the way they speak of theft. The fig had already been sliced, laid on the edge of the tray, left behind soft and dark, its skin beginning to wrinkle. It was early. Before the others woke, the camp still sleeping, the fires down to their bones. You'd risen to clean, to sweep ash from the last meal's remains. The tray sat beneath the awning, forgotten in the night wind. You hesitated. That's what you remember most. One full breath, your hand hovering over the fruit. You looked left, then right. No footsteps, no voices. Just the fig, just your hunger, just a silence that gave permission. Your fingers touched it gently, like apology, still warm. From the day before, still soft enough to press. You lifted it slow, feeling the weight of sugar on your skin, and then you bit into it. Just once. Just enough. It flooded your mouth sweet, wet, real. Not like rations, not like survival. It tasted like something from before all this, before the desert, before the silence, before the march. You swallowed and closed your eyes, not from guilt, from something quieter, a moment that asked for nothing, belonged to no one else. You held it in your chest, like breath you didn't want to lose. Then the tray moved, just slightly. You turned. Alexander stood behind you, not armored, not cloaked, just him, awake too early. His eyes lowered to your hands, then rose, calm and rose, calm and unreadable. You opened your mouth to explain, but no words came. He didn't speak either. He just looked at you then, at the tray. A pause. Then he reached down, took another fig, and without ceremony, ate it. You stood still, the wind brushing. Your robe, your throat dry. He walked away slowly, one bite left in his hand. No punishment, no decree, just a shared fruit. A stolen moment neither of you returned. Later that day, you found the tray had been cleaned by someone else. The figs gone, the cloth folded. The knife wiped dry, but your fingers still felt sticky. Every bite you took afterward felt dull by comparison. You did not tell anyone. Not the cook, not the others, not even yourself aloud. Not the fig followed you in your mouth and your ribs. In the soft part of your tongue, where sweetness hides, that night, as the fire cracked beside the sleeping cart, you touched your lip with your fingers, searching for the taste. And in your sleep you dreamt of a grove full of figs, of hands that took without shame, of kings who didn't ask why. Scene 22, he marries Roxana, you are woken before the sky turns. A hand on your shoulder, not harsh, not soft. Just firm. The kind that doesn't ask permission, but also doesn't need to. You rise without a word, your body already knowing the rhythm of service. They hand you a tray before you're fully awake. It's heavier than usual, covered in cloth. You don't ask what's inside. You never ask. But the scent is sweet and warm like almonds crushed into milk. The robe they give you is deep blue, lined with silver thread, not your color, not your size. It once belonged to someone else. You slip it on anyway, the weight of it pulling at your shoulders. It smells faintly of rosewater and cedar, and the kind of memory that doesn't speak. The palace is quiet. It's too quiet for something they call a wedding. No horns, no dancers, no drums, just guards standing at corners. Hands folded but eyes sharp. You walk slowly, the tray balanced, your feet pressing into rugs too soft to trust. The room is small, not a hall, not a throne room. It's just an inner chamber, draped in pale silk, the walls breathing with candlelight. There is no throne, no crown. Just two cushions. And on one of them, she sits. Roxana. Her hands are folded neatly in her lap. Her dress is white, but not brilliant. It clings to her like it's too tired to shine. Her hair is braided in loops, pinned with pearls that catch only the closest light. She does not look up when you enter. You place the tray between the cushions. Slow and careful. The cloth shifts slightly, revealing the curve of a ceramic bowl. Inside, rice with honey and saffron, figs sliced into thin moons. You step back once, hands behind your spine, eyes on the floor. The door opens again, then closes with a whisper. What? You don't have to look to know it's him, Alexander. His breath is different than others, sharper, deeper, enters the room. Like heat, like thought, like something that might not stay. He speaks her name. Not loudly, just once, as if to test how it sounds in the air. She lifts her head, finally their eyes meet, not like lovers, like strangers who know they must pretend. Not to be, you are not told to leave, so you stay. Still, quiet, shadow behind shadow. The one who carries, who never speaks, kneels before her, not as a husband, not as a king, but as someone trying to step into something soft without breaking it. The ceremony is spoken in a language you almost understand, enough to hear the shape of binding, of offering, of promise. She doesn't cry, doesn't smile. They touch hands only once, and even that seems practiced. No audience, no applause. Just the priest folding the cloth back over the bowl once it's done. The rice is untouched. As the figs begin to dry, you feel them cooling through the silver. Alexander speaks again, lower now, and only to her. Catch one word home. She replies without turning her head, her voice like paper. You look away. It is too intimate to witness, even for you. Then a pause, long, heavy, the kind that might have ended with a kiss in another life. But instead, Alexander rises. He does not touch her again. He nods once, and then he turns to leave. You move to take the tray, but he sees you. His eyes meet yours for the first time since you entered. There is something in them, exhaustion, maybe, or understanding. He does not speak, but you feel the message in the stillness. You carry the bowl out, its contents untouched. As you pass the guard, he glances down, then looks away. No one wants to see what isn't eaten. No one wants to ask why sweetness sits uneaten between two who do not touch. Back in the kitchen, the fire has burned low. You scrape the rice in two, a clay dish, pressing it flat with the back of a spoon. You eat slowly alone, tasting what neither of them did. The figs are still soft, but they taste like dust. That night, the palace hums low with rumors. Servants whisper about silk, about bloodlines, about power traded in silence. You say nothing, but you dream of Roxana's eyes staring through you, of hands that never reached. In your sleep, you are carrying the tray again, but this time it is empty, covered in cloth, and you are walking down a hallway that never ends, hallway where love is served cold and never touched. Scene 23. The elephant refused to eat. The creature stood still for hours, not chained, not beaten, just ... still. Its eyes half closed, its ears flicking dust from the air, and in front of it, untouched, lay a bowl of rice and mango. You had never fed an elephant before. No one told you how. They simply handed you the bowl and pointed toward the beast. It was taller than the carts, wider than the tent flaps, older than sound. The rice had been sweetened with milk. The mango slices were soft, golden, warm from the sun. A feast for a king, meant for something more than animal. Gift, an offering. A show of peace between conquest and submission. But it would not eat. You stepped closer, the bowl balanced in your hands. The heat clung to your robe, sweat trickling down your spine. The elephant shifted slightly, one foot pressing into the earth. You held your breath. You extended the bowl, arms trembling. Its trunk hovered above the fruit, close enough that you felt its breath hot, slow, like wind from a sleeping god. It touched the mango with its tip, then pulled back, then nothing, no sound, no movement. Just refusal. Behind you, the trainers began to mutter. In Persian, in Greek, in languages you only half understood. They spoke of omens, of curses, of stubbornness. But none dared step forward, none dared force the creature's will. You knelt slowly, placing the bowl on the ground. The elephant watched you, eyes dark and unreadable. You bowed your head, in reverence, in surrender, and sat beside it, silent in the dust. The mango began to blacken in the heat. Flies gathered at the edge of the rice, circling slow. Still the elephant did not eat. Still you stayed. Alexander arrived just before sunset. He walked with no guards, his robe damp with sweat. He stood across the clearing, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. Then, slowly, he approached the bowl. He did not speak. He looked at the food, then at the elephant, then at you. Then, to everyone's surprise, he knelt, lowered himself to the same level as the bowl. As you, he dipped his fingers into the rice, lifted a small amount, tasted it, then placed the rest gently on the ground. His hands stayed there, open, waiting. The elephant's trunk moved. Not fast, not eager, but with thought. It touched Alexander's hand, rested there, then moved to the bowl. It took a single piece of mango, ate it, then stepped back. Alexander stood, said nothing. But he nodded once to the elephant, to you, to no one. And then he left, his steps slow, heavy, trailing behind the sun. You remained there long after. Darkness came. The elephant lay down beside the bowl, eyes closing. They lay down too, arms curled beneath your head. Not sleeping, just ... still in the dark. You heard it chewing, soft, rhythmic, not hungry, just remembering how. And you thought, not all hunger is of the body, some must be witnessed before it dares return. When you woke, the bowl was empty, clean, as if licked by time itself. You stood, rubbed dust from your palms, and whispered nothing. The elephant opened one eye. You nodded, then walked away. Scene 24, a general falls into the fire. The wine had been flowing since sundown, not the diluted kind meant for marching, but the dark, heavy, kind, sticky, perfumed, poured into metal cups that caught firelight. The air smelled of roasted goat, of figs, of something overripe and waiting. You had been serving since the second drum. Hands full, sleeves soaked, heat clinging to your back like a second skin. The laughter was too loud, the voices slurred at the edges. But the men were pleased, and that made the danger harder to see. Alexander sat near the center, not speaking. Much he drank, yes, but slower than the rest, with purpose behind every swallow. His eyes watched the fire more than the men. You could tell he was waiting for it to turn. And it did. The general stood suddenly, goblet raised high, shouting something half-remembered. His name wasn't one you spoke often, though you'd heard it barked in commands. His face was red, his knuckles white, his feet unsteady. But his mouth kept moving, louder with each breath. Someone clapped, another whistled, then silence. The general stepped forward, closer to the flames, still shouting. He pointed at another man across the fire pit, words cutting like glass. Accusation, jealousy, rage. It crackled beneath every syllable. You froze with a bowl of barley in your hands. The room had shifted, subtly, completely. Even the laughter stopped breathing. And in that breathless moment, he moved too close. His foot caught the edge of the pit. One slip, one stagger, shout too late. Then a crash of limbs, the hiss of flesh meeting fire, and the scream. It was not long, but it was loud. The kind of sound that burrows behind your ribs. He flailed once, twice, then was pulled free, smoking wet with blood and ash. The room stood still, as if afraid to blink. You dropped the bowl, not on purpose. It shattered beside your foot. Barley scattered into the flames. No one looked at you. They looked at him. His body curled inward, arms shaking, breath shallow, and broken. Alexander rose. Slowly, he stepped around the fire without speaking, eyes narrowed, jaw locked. He knelt beside the general not in pity, not in kindness, simply watched, like he needed to see it. All of it, then he stood. He said 2 words, quiet, clear, final. Take him. And the general was lifted, carried away through the smoke. His scream did not return. Neither did he. The feast didn't resume. The wine was left half-finished, the meat untouched. You swept the floor slowly, the barley grains sticking to your sandals. You burned your fingertips picking up the metal tray, but you didn't flinch. Back in the kitchen, no one spoke. The fire in the oven hissed louder than any voice. You sat beside the bread table, head in your hands. You could still smell his skin, sweet and burnt. One of the women handed you water. Ugh. You drank it too fast. It tasted like iron. You did not eat that night. No one did. The hunger was gone, replaced by something else. When sleep came, it was thin and restless. You dreamt of fire that walked, of voices that melted, of barley cooking in blood, of a face turning toward you through flame. You woke, your hands were clenched so tight, your nails broke skin. In the silence that followed, the general's name was never spoken again. But you still saw the space he left behind in the tent at the fire. In the eyes of those who could not forget, scene 25. The night the bread wouldn't rise, you knew it was wrong the moment your fingers touched the dough. Too dense. ... dough. Cold. The water hadn't blended right. The flour clumped in strange ways, refusing to smooth. It felt like mixing sorrow into stone. You tried again, measured each scoop carefully. Salt, oil, crushed anise. Kneaded it slower this time, letting the warmth of your palms spread. Still it resisted. Still it sagged. Still it would not rise. The fire burned low, as if tired. Shh. You stoked it, whispered. To it, begged it with dry wood and steady breath. But the flame flickered strangely, licking sideways instead of upward. Even the heat felt distracted, like it too had given up. Alexander hadn't eaten in 2 days. That's what the others said, quiet over their shoulders. You'd left trays outside his tent, each one returned untouched. He drank, they said. But no one saw him chew. The soldiers felt it too. They sat around the fire without joking, without asking for seconds. They picked at lentils, left the goat half torn, their hands slow, their mouths full of silence. You pulled the dough from the bowl and pressed it flat. A last attempt not for taste, but for duty. You slid it into the pan, eyes watching the fire like it owed you something. It cooked, it browned, but it never rose. When you pulled it free, it was heavy as clay, cracked along the edges. The scent was wrong, too sharp, too bitter. You tapped it once, hollow, but not in the right way. You tore off a piece. It crumbled, stuck to your teeth. You wrapped it anyway, tucked it beneath a folded cloth, carried it to his tent, walking slower than usual. The night air was cool, the stars washed in pale haze. The wind tasted of dust and smoke and memory. The guards didn't stop you. They saw the cloth, and that was enough. You stepped through the flap, eyes low, breath steady. And there he was, sitting on the floor, alone. His hair was unbound, falling. Loose over his shoulders, he wasn't wearing his robe. It's just a simple tunic stained with wine. He looked up as you entered, and for once there was no weight in his gaze. Just exhaustion. You placed the bread down beside him. He glanced at it, then at you, then away again. He didn't reach for it, didn't ask what it was, he just spoke. One word. Barely a whisper. Why? You didn't answer. You weren't sure what he meant. Why the bread failed? Why you kept bringing it? Or why no one could feed the kind of hunger he carried? He closed his eyes, leaned back against the tent pole. His fingers brushed the edge of the cloth, but still, he didn't eat. You watched the firelight flicker on his skin the way it touched. The curve of his throat, the deep lines beneath his eyes. Then he said, quieter still, nothing rises anymore. You felt those words deeper than you expected. Not as philosophy. It's not as prophecy. It's just as truth. Soft, bare. Final, you left without. Taking the bread, you didn't wait for permission. Outside the stars had dimmed, or maybe your eyes had. You sat beside the cart and didn't speak until the sky turned pale. The next morning, the bread was still there, untouched, hard as stone. You held it in your hands before tossing it into the fire. It smoked for a moment, then blackened, then vanished. And still, the hunger remained. Scene 26, you dream of the grove in Pella that night. The fire burned too low to keep you warm. You curled against the stone wall behind the cook tent, your robe stiff with flour, your fingers stained from honey gone sour. You didn't mean to sleep, but your eyes shut anyway, and then you're there again, not in the desert, not among carts, or weapons, or sleepless bodies. You were back in Pella, before the war, before him, before hunger. The air was cool, wet with morning, still folded in silence. The olive trees curved above you, silver leaves fluttering like breath. Their trunks were thick, wide enough to lean against for hours. You knew them. You knew every branch, every root. And they knew you. That's what it felt like. Your hands held a bowl. Clay still warm from the kill. Inside, a single roll of bread, golden, split down the center. Steam curled from the tier, carrying the smell of home, soft and rich, like a voice calling your name without sound. No one was there, but you didn't feel alone. You sat on the low stone ledge beside the basin. You dipped the bread into oil. Thick, golden, unrushed. It clung to the crust like light, like memory, like something earned. You chewed slowly. Each bite took you further from the battlefield, further from sand, from burned lentils, from the mouth that would not open. Each taste reminded your hands what they once knew. A bird landed near your feet, its feathers gray with hints of rust. Head tilted toward your motion, hopped forward once, then waited. You broke off a piece of crust. Gently. Offered it without speech. It took the bread without fear, swallowed, hopped away. You watched it disappear between two low branches, and in its absence, the grove deepened, folded itself around your breath. Your legs were bare again like they were when you were younger. No sandals, no bruises, no weight of trays, of orders, of names. Just your skin, your knees dusted with flour, your toes in the cool earth. The wind curled into your collar and rested there. You felt your mother's hands again, not as a face, not as a person, but as a rhythm. She wasn't there, but you knew she had passed this bowl to you. Not today, not in dream, long ago, and again now. You looked down. The bread was almost gone. Only crumbs remained, clinging to the curve of your palm. And for the first time in years, you felt full, not stuffed, not aching, just filled, quietly, entirely. Then a voice's voice called your name, not loud, not urgent, just present. It didn't echo. It didn't command. It sounded the way your name should sound, as if someone knew it, not just used it. You turned slowly, but the grove was empty again. Only the trees, only the basin, only the stone beneath you. You sit beside the tent long after the tray is taken. No one tells you to leave. The night air wraps around your robe, dry and sour, and your hands still smell of iron and bread. The camp is quieter now. The men eat in silence, The guard's step. Softer. Everyone moves like they're walking beside a sleeping god, not out of worship. Out of fear of what happens when he wakes, a boy passes you a bowl of water. You rinse your hands, but the red still lingers in the cracks of your skin. It always does. Some stains aren't meant to be washed. You don't sleep that night. You watch the flap of the tent lift and lower with each shallow breath inside. And when the stars shift, when the breeze grows colder, you hear him speak. Just one word. Mother. Soft, shaky. Not for you. Not for anyone living. But it folds. Into your chest like cloth pressed tight, you close your eyes. Press your forehead to your knees. Pretend it's the wind speaking. Not a man who was once a god. Scene 30, the day they started whispering the word death. The day began like most others. Ash in the basin. Bread in the cloth. Boots brushing dry stone. You were kneading quietly, elbows dusted in flour when you noticed no one was asking for second helpings. A general passed through the cook tent without speaking. His hand trembled when he lifted the wine, spilled it slightly, then stared at the stain like it meant something.
Ow.
But he didn't wipe it, just left. Outside, the sun pressed its weight against the tents, but no one cursed the heat. No one. Joked about the march. They chewed slowly, without salt, like they were preparing their stomachs for the taste of bad news. You brought a tray of figs to the inner circle. Not for him, not today, but for the men beneath him. They barely looked at you. One reached out, grabbed two, and dropped one as he turned away. You picked it up slowly, the fruit soft and bruised. It bled into your palm, syrupy and thick. You didn't wipe it, you held it, kept walking by midday. The shadows around his tent had grown longer, though the sun sat high in the sky. The guards didn't speak to one another. They only glanced, then looked down. You brought another bowl, rice and honey again, shaped into something easy to swallow. You placed it by the flap, as always, but this time, no hand reached through. You stayed longer, long enough to hear the priest's voice inside, low and steady. He wasn't praying. He was listing names. Names of rivers. Names of stars. You returned to the cook fire and didn't speak. The others didn't ask. They were stirring beans, too. Slowly grinding lentils too soft. One dropped a spoon and never picked it up. By the time evening came, the tent lights had dimmed. Someone brought fresh linens. Someone else brought a bowl of snow, and still no one said it. No one dared say the word, but it hung there, heavy as steam. You sat on the stone step outside the kitchen, holding a cloth you didn't remember folding. Your thumb traced the fraying edge again and again. And somewhere inside you, the word had already arrived. Death not. Loud, not final, not like the books say. This death was slower, quieter, like something unraveling inside the seams. Like bread that stops rising, like breath that forgets how to return. And now it was in everything, in the way the fire didn't. Crackle. In the way the olives tasted flat, in the silence after a joke that no one tried to finish. In the sleep that wouldn't come. That night, someone passed by your mat and paused. You looked up, expecting a name, a task, a reason. But the woman just said, "It's close now." Then she walked away, her voice curling behind her like smoke. You didn't answer, because you knew. You felt it in your belly, in the backs of your teeth, in the way your breath caught every time the tent flap moved. You watched the stars until your eyes blurred. Watched the guards lean against spears without strength. Watched a boy weep into, his knees silent and shake as if the grief had already passed through him. And still no one said it. Not the commanders, not the scribes, but the air had changed. The world had tilted. All you could do was wait for the word to come aloud. When you finally slept, it was shallow. You dreamt of a mouth opening, but when it tried to speak, no sound came out, just a gust of wind, smelling of figs and blood and salt. You woke with the taste still on your tongue, your robe damp beneath your arms, sky beginning to pale at the edges, and still the bowl you left the night before had not been touched. Scene 31. You hear him cry for the first time. You were folding cloth when it happened. Not near him, not inside the tent. You were in the shade of the kitchen awning, hands busy, mind drifting between spice jars and sleep. The wind had stilled. Even the fire had stopped crackling. The air around you felt strange, like the sky was holding its breath for something it couldn't stop. You were smoothing the corners of a fresh robe, warm from the basin, still faintly damp. And then the sound came. Low, hollow, human. It wasn't shouting. It wasn't pain. It was something else. The kind of sound that happens when something soft finally breaks. At first you thought it was an animal, a wounded horse maybe, or a boy waking from fever, but no one else moved. Not the guards, not the servants. They all froze. Then it came again. Quieter this time, closer. You knew without asking where it came from. The tent. His tent. You placed the cloth aside, stood slowly, heart pressing against your ribs like a whisper. You walked. Not rushed, not hesitant, just steady, like someone carrying a bowl that must not spill. You reached the tent and stopped at the edge. Didn't lift the flap, didn't step in. Just listened. The sound was clearer now, breath-catching. Throat closing. Not a man commanding, not a king, just a boy crying, the kind of crying that doesn't want to be heard, the kind that waits until everyone else is asleep, the kind that remembers something too clearly, then wishes it had forgotten. He wasn't alone in there. You could hear someone move, not speaking, just shifting their weight, letting it happen, not stopping it, just being near. The curtain fluttered. Slightly in the heat, you could smell the old wine in the air. It mixed with the salt, with the breath, with the dry scent of sweat and sickness and lavender water. He said a name. You don't know whose? A man? A mother? A friend long dead? You don't know? But the sound of it made your chest hollow. You stepped back. Not from fear, not from shame, but from a need to give him something. Space, maybe, or dignity, or silence. You returned to the cook tent. The others didn't speak. They had heard too, but none of them said a word. Just eyes lowered, just hands moving slower than before. That night, no bowls were set out, no wine poured, no figs sliced. The fire was left to burn down to embers, as if anything more would be too loud. You sat alone on the step, the robe still folded beside you. You looked up at the stars and wondered how many kings had cried behind curtains no one dared to open. When you finally laid down, you did not dream of bread or stone. You dreamt of Himberfoot in a grove, and the sound of crying that the trees did not try to hush. Scene 32, the basin fills with blood, not watered, was meant to be a morning like any other. You gathered the linens in your arms, warm and wet, the scent of rosemary oil clinging to the threads. The stone basin, waiting in its usual corner by the tent's edge. The cloth floated easily in the water. Until it didn't, you reached in. With both hands, pressed the fabric under, worked the folds between your fingers, and then you froze. There was warmth, but not the right kind. It spread across your palms, thick and slow, coating your skin like something that had already died. You lifted your hand from the water, and the color caught the light dark, rust red, clinging beneath your nails, streaking the soft skin of your wrist, dripping in silence onto the stones. You blinked once, twice, no wound on your hand. No broken cloth, no spilled wine, but the basin had changed. What was once clear had deepened, still mirror of blood without a source, rippling gently as if the earth beneath had begun to breathe. You stepped back, the cloth fell. It landed soundlessly in. The red, the color swallowed it whole. Behind you, footsteps halted. A young boy, an errand runner, holding figs in one hand. He didn't speak, just stared at the basin, then turned and walked away, slower than before. You didn't call after him. You knelt instead, dipped one finger again. Still warm, still thick, still real, or something close enough. When you stood, you wrapped your hands in the drying cloth, the one meant for Alexander's drinking bowl. You walked back to the kitchen, heart quiet, as if your body knew what your mind hadn't admitted yet. That day, everything smelled faintly of copper. The lentils boiled too fast. The rice turned, a strange color, pale and gray. No one finished their bowls. Alexander didn't leave his tent. But you saw someone carry out a cloth folded, soaked through, edges blackened with something too dark for wine. They didn't meet your eye. You tried to scrub the basin that evening, alone, after the others had gone. You poured fresh water in, over and over, but the stain had settled into the stone. You scraped with a dull blade. You whispered names while you worked, but no matter how long you scrubbed, the red stayed, like it belonged. That night, you didn't sleep beside the others. You curled beside the hearth, holding a clean bowl to your chest, as if having one thing untouched would protect something. Inside you, the bowl stayed empty, but it was still warm. You dreamt of the basin again. This time it was full of faces people you'd fed, washed, carried. Their eyes blinked slowly up at you, not asking for help, just waiting for you to remember. Their names, when you woke, your hands were red again. Not in dream, not in memory, just red. And the water jug nearby had tipped. Or maybe it hadn't. Maybe Stain never needed water. Maybe it had been there all along. Scene 3-3. You were the one who washes his body. They came for you before sunrise. 2 guards, 1 priest. No words. Just a slow nod. You knew before they spoke. You felt it in your knees, in the air, in your breath that didn't deepen. The cook wouldn't look at you. She pressed a warm cloth into your hand. Another servant handed you a basin already filled, and someone else placed the folded robe on your shoulder like a burden. You walked alone. No footsteps ahead, none behind. It's only the wind brushing your ankles, and the sky bruised with that pale blue that knows what's just passed. The guards waited at the tent. They parted without touch. You stepped through the flap, and the silence wrapped around your throat like cloth soaked in oil. He was on the mat, laid out. Not stiff, not soft, just still in the way that meant something was. Finally over. His hands rested across his chest, like a boy pretending to sleep. His eyes had been closed. Someone had done that already. But not the rest. That part. They left for you. You knelt beside him. The basin warmed your hip. The cloth heavy now. Not from weight, but from meaning. You pressed it to his shoulder slowly. His skin was cold, but not icy. Still held a memory of heat, as if his body hadn't yet decided how long it wanted to stay here. You moved the cloth across his collarbone. There were scars you hadn't seen before. A thin line beneath his ribs. A burn near his elbow. A mark on his thigh like an old chain had once rested there. You didn't hurry. You pressed the cloth into the bowl again, let the water drip between your fingers. Wiped his chest, his arms, his throat, your breath quiet, your hand steady. There was blood near his mouth, dried now, faint, like a final word spoken too sharply. You cleaned it last, as gently as you would a child's eye, whispered something you didn't know the meaning of. No one watched. No one interrupted. This was not part of war or duty or spectacle. It was just you and him in a silence that asked nothing more. When you reached his hands, you paused. His fingers still curled slightly, as if they held something. But they didn't. Not anymore. You washed each one slowly, smoothing the joints. He was not a king then. Not a god. Not a storm. It's just a man who had been hungry, who had marched, who had cried when he thought no one was listening. When you were done, you dressed him, folded the robe across his chest, tied the sash gently at the hip, pressed the final cloth over his face with both palms. You stayed a moment longer, not out of hesitation, but out of something deeper. The need to memorize him is still, instead of burning. Then, you rose, lifted the basin, folded the cloth, and stepped out into the morning, where the wind no longer felt like waiting. No one asked what you saw. No one asked what you felt. But as you passed, each man stepped aside. The silence followed you like shadow. You placed the basin down by the kitchen fire. It steamed faintly, and the scent of him, rose water, sweat, and something faintly metallic still lingered in the bowl. You didn't empty it. Not yet. You sat down beside it. Let your hands rest on your knees, and for the first time since you Left the grove, you allowed yourself to cry. Scene 34, you watched them burn the tent. They didn't do it at night. That surprised you? You thought they would wait until dark, until fewer eyes were watching? But no, the order came at midday, softly, without fanfare. One sentence passed from soldier to scribe, then to the fard. No one raised their voice. No one shouted. But men began to gather slow, silent, the way people do when they are unsure what grief is supposed to look like. You stood behind the olive cart, your hands still wet from rinsing a bowl that would never be used again. You saw the first torch raised, a thin line of flame, flickering like it didn't want to do what it had been told. The tent flaps had already been closed. It's not tied, just drawn inward, like a mouth sealed shut. The red embroidery around the edges seemed darker now, like blood that had dried into memory. They touched the fire to the canvas. It caught too fast. The cloth curled like old parchment, and smoke bloomed upward like breath from a broken chest. No one spoke. Even the horses, tethered far from the flame, stood still, as if they too remembered who had once slept beneath that roof. You stepped forward once, just one step. Enough to feel the heat brush your ankles. The smell came next, not of wood, not of oil, but of time unraveling. Inside that tent had been his silence, his pain, his maps, his questions, his hunger. Robe you folded, the basin you carried, it's the bowl that stayed full. Now it all curled into black. The flap collapsed first, then the right wall. And with it, the place where he'd once leaned his head against the pole during long hours of stillness. Someone beside you whispered, it had to be done. You didn't turn, you didn't answer. You just stared until your eyes began to sting. Not from the smoke, you remembered the first time you entered that space, carrying goat stew. Too hot. Your hands shaking from fear, from pressure, from knowing. Who you were feeding? He hadn't looked at you that day. Not then, not really. But over time, his silence began to change shape, less cold, less hard, less heavy. And now, all of it burned. The fire hissed as it reached the basin. Steam burst upward. For a moment, you thought you smelled bread, but it passed too quickly to be real. He took a step back. The heat was too close now. Even the air seemed thick with his breath, and in it too heard it again. His voice, not words, just tone, low, worn like a man asking for something he no longer expected to receive. It passed like wind through branches, gone before you could name it. But it settled in your chest, the way certain dreams do when you wake too soon. The fire kept burning. When it was done, the ash was scattered by a single man with a cloth. No urn, no offering. No grave, only wind. You returned to the kitchen and set the empty bowl where it had always sat, near the spice jars. You didn't clean it, you didn't put it away, just let it be there, like the memory it had become. And that night, when you lay down, you felt the heat still radiating through the soles of your feet. The scent of him in your robes, the soft, smoky hush of a tent folding in on itself. Scene 35, the new commander refuses the bread. He sat where Alexander used to sit. Not in the same posture, not with the same weight. His boots were polished, too sharply, his robe too clean. He didn't lean, he didn't listen. He waited to be served. You stood beside the fire that morning, kneading the dough slower. Your wrists ached more than usual. The flour wouldn't cling. Still, you shaped the loaves the way you always had. Pressed your thumb into each one like you were leaving behind proof. The kitchen whispered his name differently. Not with awe, not with fear, just distance. You heard it fall from mouths like a cracked spoon, flat, unbothered. Temporary, someone else was told to deliver the first loaf. Not you. You were told to rest, to clean something else. But your hands stayed wrapped around the tray even as they took it. You watched it go, bread still steaming toward a table that no longer belonged. They brought it back, untouched, the cloth folded neatly over it, as if they hadn't even tried. You took it in silence. No one met your eye. You pressed your fingers against the crust and felt it still warm, still soft. still everything it needed to be. The boy who carried it gave you a single glance. He didn't need to say it. You already knew. He says it's too plain, he finally murmured. As if the air around the words might break, you didn't reply. You tore the bread in half, a perfect center, steam rising like a sigh. You bit into it slowly, just to be sure. Still good. Still yours. Still everything it had always been. Later that day, he ordered lentils with meat, prepared by someone else, someone younger, someone cleaner. You watched from the far end of the tent, rolling oil in a small bowl between your hands. He didn't finish that bowl either. And the next day, when they brought him honeyed barley, he pushed it away after a single bite, said it tasted like dirt. But you remembered he didn't know what dirt tasted like. The men started whispering again. This time not about illness. It's not about gods, but about taste, about texture. About how the bread no longer felt like it should. You baked again. Quietly. Alone. Without being asked. Just one loaf. Smaller than usual. Crust brushed with oil. Still faintly warm from your breath. You placed it in the cloth. Folded it twice. Left it where you always did, just before dusk. Didn't say whose it was. Didn't ask permission. Stepped away. The next morning it was gone. You found the cloth beside the kitchen fire, folded carefully, smoothed flat, no crumbs. And no one said anything. But you saw the new commander's eyes follow you just once. He didn't thank you, didn't ask for more. But the next bowl that came back half-eaten was the one you had made. And from then on, you were never told to rest again. Scene 36. You returned to the grove. In a dream it didn't come the first night. Or the second. When the air grew too still to breathe, and the fire crackled like it was trying to say your name, it came. Sleep folded you gently into it. No weight. No fear. Only the hush of leaves brushing your shoulders as if they remembered your skin. You opened your eyes too green. Not the dry olive leaves of the camp, but full, silver-tipped, bending in wind that touched your face like a mother's hand. And beneath your feet, real soil damp, forgiving, alive, you were barefoot, your toes sinking into earth, not dust. Your hands empty, but light. No tray, no cloth, just the shape of your breath. The trees knew you. They did not move. They did, not part. But they allowed you through, like a memory giving up its grip. There was a stone basin again, same as before, same as always. You reached down, touched the rim cool, weathered, slightly slick with dew. The bowl was there too. Clay, simple, familiar. Inside it, a round of bread, golden and split, steam rising as if it had just been placed. You picked it up without thinking. Your fingers found the same old groove. The crust flaked softly under your thumb. It was still warm. You sat beside the tree with the hollowed trunk, the one where you once left honey for ants. And there you ate slowly, silently, with your eyes half closed. The taste was perfect, not because it was rich, not because it was new, but because it remembered you. A bird landed near your shoulder. It watched without fear, one eye blinking. You tore off a piece and set it down. It didn't move yet. It was waiting. There was no sound beyond the wind. No drums, no boots, no coughing. Not even his voice. Just the quiet of trees growing old. Around you, and you thought not in words. But in that soft knowing that dreams sometimes carry, you thought, this is the first place. The one before you became someone who waited outside tents. The bread filled you in a way nothing had in weeks. It spread through your belly, into your shoulders, down your arms, into your palms. Like light poured slowly into clay. When you looked down, the bowl was empty. Not in loss, in completion. The kind of emptiness that means something sacred has ended. You lay back on the warm grass, stared up through the branches, watched the sky shift from silver to gold. And for the first time in years, you didn't wonder who needed you next. You only listened, and the trees whispered nothing. They had said all they needed. Scene 37. The last bowl you ever carry, you knew it would be the last before they told you. Before the guard nodded, before the cook looked away, before the sun rose weak and cold behind a veil of dust. You knew. In your chest, in your knees, in your breath. The morning felt slower. Even the fire needed coaxing. The flower clung differently to your skin, as though it too knew this day was meant to end something. You chose the bowl with both hands. The old one, the chipped one. The one he used during the early marches when his name still sounded human. You didn't rush the bread. Let it rest. Twice. Let it rise long. Brushed it with oil like you were smoothing a forehead. Let the crust darken at the edges just the way he once liked. No one asked what you were making. They didn't need to. They watched your movements like they were. Watching the sea pull back before the wave, you wrapped the loaf in a thin cloth. Figs sliced gently, placed beside it. Not because they asked for it, but because there are things you do whether someone asks or not. The wind had turned by the time you left the tent. Low, warm, full of dust and salt. It tugged at your robe like a child clinging to your side. You walked slower anyway. No guards this time, no barrier, no curtain, just the path. Just the tent, just your feet in worn sandals. And a bowl that had weight beyond what your arms could explain. You didn't pause at the flap, didn't listen for breath. You just set the tray down at the edge of the canvas where shadow met sun, where silence could still hold meaning. Your hands lingered, not to adjust, not to fix. Just to say something through touch that words would only ruin. You stood a moment longer. Let the bowl rest between you and the entrance. Let the wind carry the scent of bread through the fabric, then turned without. Looking back, no one asked where you had gone. No one followed. The cook pressed your shoulder once. That was all. The bowl was not returned that evening, nor the next. No one mentioned it. But someone cleared the space near the hearth where it once sat. You didn't bake the next day. Your apron stayed folded. Your hands stayed still. And you watched the sky like it might offer something you hadn't yet given. That night you dreamt of his hand again, reaching not for power, not for command, but for something warm, something small, something that asked nothing from him. And in that dream you placed the bowl into his palm, and this time he held it. Scene 38, the kitchen, is quiet, and so our youth knives still hang on the wall. The spoons still clatter in the basin. The fire still burns beneath the same clay pot, but everything tastes like yesterday now. You rise before the others, out of habit, not purpose. The robe hangs looser on your shoulders. Your hands, though clean, never quite feel washed. The morning air carries less weight. No names shouted, no orders barked. Just birds again, far off, like the world has started to remember itself. You grind the grain like you used to. The rhythm is there, but the sound feels wrong, too sharp, too distant. As if the stone beneath the pestle is trying not to speak. The bread rises, but you no longer wait beside it. You do not watch the edges brown or lift the cloth with care. You leave it to the air and walk away. They ask less of you now. The new men don't know your name. They call you cook, or you, or say nothing at all. And that silence is louder than command. One boy young, thinner than the rest, asks how you make the crust so soft. You tell him, don't rush the water. Let it feel your hands. He doesn't understand. He nods anyway. Sometimes you catch the shape of a tent in the corner of your eye. A familiar curve. A shadow in the same place. You turn quickly, almost hopeful, but it's just canvas, just light. Just the past pretending it's still nearby. You no longer walk to the grove in dreams. Now it comes to you in waking. In the scent of oil warming in the pan, in the way wind moves over bowls, cooling on the ledge. Once you found a piece of folded cloth beneath a stack of trays. Old, frayed, marked faintly with dried honey at one edge. You held it in both hands for too long, then placed it in the fire. Not as loss, it's offering. No one asked why. You sit now by the kitchen wall in the late afternoon, your knees drawn up, your apron dusted with flour. The sun dips lower than before, and for a moment you feel it again. Not sorrow, not memory. Just the weight of breath in your chest, and the knowing that you were there when the bread was warm. When the hand reached for it, when it no longer could. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to listen, and the quiet finally answers you. You don't need to stand, not tonight. The pots are clean, The bread has cooled. The wind moves gently through the canvas, folding into the corners. No one calls your name. Oh, no one waits for figs or broth or wine. Even the dogs outside. The camp have gone quiet, curled beneath carts, dreaming of hands they remember. You lie down beside the old hearth. The stones still warm from the day. You pull the cloth over your shoulder, not the heavy one, not the one for the kings, just yours. Your hands rest still on your stomach. Fingers curled, relaxed, empty. You can still feel the shape of a bowl. There, but it no longer needs to be carried. You listen for boots, for commands, for coughing, but none come. Only the soft breath of flame, crackling low like someone whispering to themselves. The tent above you sways slightly. You count the creaks in the pole. 1, 2, 3, and then you stop counting. You let the numbers fade. Your legs ache from standing, but it's the ache that feels like proof. Proof that you served, that you walked, that you fed someone who changed the world and then left it. You close your eyes. The dark is not frightening. It's warm, familiar, like the inside of a bakery before sunrise. The scent of bread still clings to your robe. Your hair still smells of oil, and somewhere in a part of your chest that does not forget. He is still reaching for the bowl you placed beside his bed. You do not cry. You do not dream. You simply rest. And the fire stays with you. Low, kind, endless.